Hello, this is BB True Crime, and I'm insulted because Beth's taking the piss out of me for my fudge.
Well,
Angry.
What an intro to an episode. We are BB True Crime.
We are.
And welcome to episode 35.
Might be the last if it keeps going like this.
Right, it's because their fudge flavour was clotted cream.
It's great! Why are you judging? It's a classic.
Okay.
Oh, so you're telling me that you'd only be okay with it if it was vanilla?
No, I also just don't like fudge, so ow!
That's a good use of fudge.
I also bruise easy, so...
Not your head. Hard enough.
I'm gonna report you to someone.
Put me out of my misery. Report me. See if I care.
Well, then you won't be able to get clotted cream anymore.
Oh, police! She assaulted me! With what? A bar of clotted cream fudge!
Right. This has nothing to do with school shootings.
Well, I didn't hit that one. I don't know what
This is what today's episode is about, so... I left that for way too long before I said that. I couldn't stop laughing.
Trigger warning.
Yes, also that. Yes, I was going to do that, but then I was distracted by getting attacked by fudge, so...
Oh, it wasn't an attack, alright?
Well,
It was a light biffing.
Yes.
Biffing.
So, either way, today, episode 35, we are doing the Columbine School shooting, which is
the OG.
Yes, well, not in a good way, but, you know, the most notorious, well-known
Nobody
school
said
shooting.
the OG had to be a good thing.
Oh, but it's normally synonymous with... I said the word right. Are you proud of me?
Proud of you.
With good
She's
things.
Englishing.
I know. Wow.
Wow.
I've made a comeback, huh? Wow.
She's got a master's degree in English and she said an English word. I've never been prouder.
Thank you. But yeah, so this is one we've been wanting to do for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely one that I feel like, you know, you should have your drink and your little snacks for.
Ice cream.
Cause
To cry in.
yeah, anything really just to be depressed with.
Tissues.
You know, it's not nice.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think it can be worse than the other school shooting we did when they were all like babies.
Yeah, this one was still pretty bad though.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I'm just going to say it. All school shootings are bad.
I feel like that's a given.
I'd hope so. But sometimes you need to say it.
Consider it said.
Okay, thank you. Right. So, let's crack on, shall we? Like, this is what you're here for. Let's do
Get
it.
into the nitty gritty.
So, the Columbine high school shooting.
Okay.
One of the most disturbing and deadly school shootings in American history. But why did it happen?
Because America has shit gun laws.
Well, yes.
Oh,
And
sorry,
also apologise for our American viewers, the listeners.
I feel like even Americans could acknowledge there are flaws in the system.
Yeah, I hope so.
Either way, I won't apologise for not liking your gun laws. They're
It's
ridiculous.
also probably not the first time we've ever said that, so...
Did we not do a podcast discussing gun laws? Or am I just having a seizure?
That one's not up for the public.
Oh, is it not?
No, I
Is
don't
that one of
think
our
so.
secret ones?
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Oh, so
If
we
we
did a
did it, I
secret
think we
chatty
did.
boy about gun laws. It was quite good fun, to be fair.
I'll have to try find the memory stick somewhere, and I might upload it as like a little separate thing. So yeah, so what did make... So the shooters were called Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold.
Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris.
Yes. So
Dylan and Eric.
what made the shooters commit these horrendous acts and change the history of the Columbine High School forever? Can anything be changed to adhere to the mass violent gun crime in America?
Mm-hmm.
Or are situations like these bound to just continue to happen? Let's
I
explore.
really hope not.
But also, this happened in 1999, and yet they are still happening.
I
So
was 3. Which, to put into perspective for you viewers, I am nearly 30. Nearly 30.
Yeah, we don't need to discuss
Nearly. Why not? I'm not ashamed of it. You can be ashamed in the corner all you
that.
like.
No, mine's more just panic and fear.
Existential crisis.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm proud of making
Okay,
it to
first
30.
of all, you're not nearly 30.
I am nearly 30.
You're not even 28 yet.
Honey, as soon as you pass the 27 threshold, you are in your late 20s. Which means as
I
of...
got told it was 26 and over, but I thought that was mid-20s.
That's mid-20s.
I'm almost...
You're being lied to.
late. Oh, God, kill me.
You're nearly in your late 20s.
And yet, what have I done with my life?
Oh, no,
God,
this is not...
Oh, God. Oh.
We've just triggered an existential crisis.
Oh, you're crying. Oh, right.
Focus on the shooting.
Right.
Lives actually ending. Death. Horror.
Okay, so I said...
Gun violence.
Right, okay. Right, so I separated the next bit.
Okay.
Oh, because we don't know, like, a crazy load of, like, backstory about, like how we would normally do it. Normally, we know, like, a good chunk of what happened in these people's lives that, like, caused them to do this. This, we know some stuff.
Not very open about the past.
Yeah, but not a lot.
Okay.
Because they deleted themselves. Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah, so it's not like you could ask them, really.
Do you know what the funny thing is, right? For some reason, when you said that, I was like, how do you Control-Alt-Delete?
That's not quite...
And then I realised that you were making a euphemism for unaliving, and I was like, oh.
They did the suicides, okay? Or the suicides.
The
if you're on
suicides.
TikTok.
The suicides.
They did that.
Unconniving.
Yes.
Either way, they offed themselves.
They did, so it's not really like you can ask them.
Unless...
Ouija board?
No, I was thinking we go and find Yennefer from Witcher 3.
You really
she
like that
resurrects the
way too
motherfucker.
much.
Or we could go the Dungeons and Dragons with Chris Pratt and you resurrect somebody and you get Chris Pine and you get like 5 questions to ask the dead person before they're dead again.
Well, if you're on Baldur's Gate 3, it's a spell called Raise the Dead, and yeah, you can ask them like 3 questions and then they just die again.
We've gone off topic.
Yeah, we really... Okay, right, I'm so sorry. We need to really put a handle on this. So, because we don't know a lot about them...
Okay.
I've split them because obviously there was 2 shooters.
Okay.
What I've done is, because we don't normally have many cases where there's several people.
Yeah.
That are the bad men.
Instigators.
Yes.
Instigators.
The villains.
The villains.
You know. So I've split... No, babe, now is not the time.
We had the boyfriend call in there.
Oh, God.
Jesus. Right,
so,
continue.
I've split the backstory of what we do know about Eric and Dylan into 2 separate little bits.
So,
Some
Eric
of them...
and Dylan.
Yeah, some bits will intertwine.
Okay.
Just because they were very, like, bestie. No, don't awe it. It's not good. That was a bad time. No.
You gotta have a bestie in Homicide.
We don't have time to unpack that.
Inappropriate comment. Moving on.
Yes. So, we're going to start with Eric, who I'd like to say, and I don't think this is super controversial, is the more problematic of the 2. Obviously, they're both problematic. Okay. Granted, what they did.
But there's always one, I feel, that in like a duo, there's always one who's a little bit worse. Like with the Jamie Bulger case.
True, yeah, one did most of the thing. Yeah, it's kind of a similar thing here. One's
2 villains, but one is definitely more the leader and the other one's more the follower.
So I'd like to say Eric is definitely the leader.
Okay, alright.
So a lot of the things will be about him. Including, like, the crime they're going to do is largely, like, he definitely killed more.
Okay.
Let's just say.
Great.
Right, so...
Let's get on with it.
Eric Harris. Born April 9th, 1981.
Same year. Oh, no?
Yeah, after my mother.
Yes. My parents were already 10.
So he'd be 43 this year.
If he hadn't capped it.
Yes, or did bad boy crimes. Was born in Wichita. I did not say that correctly at all, did I?
Wichita. Don't worry, Americans, I got you.
God help us all.
Wichita.
I'm so sorry. In Kansas.
Yes.
The Harris family, they moved a lot. Mainly because his father was in the US Air Force as a transport pilot.
Oh, he was the kid of a
Yeah. His mum was just a homemaker. That's fine. Okay. His family moved from Plattsburgh in New York to Littleton in Colorado in July 1993.
Okay.
This is when his father had retired from military service.
Okay.
During that time, Harris attended Ken Carroll Middle School, which is where he met Dylan Klebold. So they met
Dylan.
Yeah, they met in middle school.
Middle school, that's like 13, 14, isn't it?
It's what we would call technically like primary
Secondary
school. No, because me and you are different things.
We've
From
already
the
had
north
this
and the south.
conversation. Right.
Right.
How old?
For me, primary school.
No. How old are the boys right now?
What, when they commit the crimes?
No, when they meet.
Well, it'll be middle school. It doesn't give an age.
Okay, how old then?
Because I don't know if he started at a random year in middle school because he moved around a lot.
Okay.
Or if he just started from the beginning.
So what age roughly are we talking about?
For primary school, ours is 5 to about 13. And then secondary school is that until 6. Until... Oh no, it's not. 5 till about 11 then. 11, 12. And then secondary school is till 16. And then college, 16 to 18. And then uni onwards.
Incredibly, you're describing my school system, but I'm pretty sure we have different school systems. Either way, young.
Yeah.
Young.
It's weird being from the north and the south. Very weird.
There is some strange culture differences between north and south. We're not going to get into that right now because we've got a mass murdering couple.
Either way, they met in what we would describe as primary school. Middle
school.
Yes, well, it's middle school to Americans. So he actually was classed as a good student.
That's worrying.
And he rarely ever missed school.
Also worrying.
So we've skipped forward a few years. 1996.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I'm just thinking. He moved to Colorado in July 1993.
Okay.
I'm going to assume that they were 18 or so when they... I know one was slightly older than the other one. 1981. And then 1993.
He would have been 12. When
he
moved,
Yeah, so about primary school age. Okay, so 1996.
So he'd be 15, 16 at this point.
This was a bit of the time where it's like more the rise of the internet, that kind of thing. Computers, a bit more mainstream. I remember my very chunky computer we had in a little tiny room.
Minesweeper, Solitaire.
Yeah, basics.
Classics.
PowerPoint presentations with you have no internet.
Clip art.
Yeah, I miss it.
Love clip art.
Little PC games. Fun times. So 1996,
golden era.
On his little computer he had at the time, he hosted his own website, which was first used to create levels in some very old video games.
Okay.
Such as, most famously for him, Doom, which
Nice.
I'm sure everyone's heard of.
Nice.
And also one called Quake. I've not actually heard of that.
Quake sounds familiar.
I'm sure it's similar to Doom.
Yeah.
But Doom was the most well-known for him anyway, when we'll go into that later. So, for example, with Doom, for example, so what he used to do in these, I don't know if he originally did start off doing that with the levels. He did make some normal levels.
Okay.
But the ones where you design them.
Okay.
The custom made ones that you've made.
Got it.
Right. So I don't know if they originally started off like this or if he made some like this as he got older. But there was a few levels that he'd made to look like the high school of Columbine.
Ah,
yes.
Okay.
And then would practice the crime in the Doom level that he'd made to look like and set out to be like his school. So I'm going to assume that's something he did later. But those levels were found by the police and will never be
released
for public.
Yeah.
Yes, those are what's technically called lost files, lost tapes.
Okay.
They're not completely lost. They will never probably be available for the public.
Shocking.
Yeah. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Shall we restrict people being able to practice going through their school shooting everybody? I can see why that's restricted.
Well, there is some more questionable things that came out later on, but
I do not doubt it for 1 second. You never hit me with the biggest one straight out the gate.
Oh god, no. So, also on the site, a bit later on after these kind of levels, he then started his own little blog.
Mm-hmm.
which I think was probably normal around that time.
Who did he hate? They always hate somebody.
Well, I don't know. He was a very hateful kind of guy, it seemed. Some things on his blog included details about him sneaking out of the house to cause a bit of mischief, a bit of vandalism.
Sounds familiar.
He used to call them his rebel missions.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, you actually find that cool, don't you? For fuck's sake. Oh, Becky.
But you know how, like, you go downstairs to, like, put some washing on and you get sidetracked by doing the what, and you're like...
Mission done.
And
Mission
you're like...
failed, lads.
No, but you're, like, doing the washing, like, with, like, the clothes and everything, and then you get sidetracked by, like, putting away, like, the mugs from yesterday, and you're like...
Side quest
side
done.
mission.
Yeah.
Side mission.
Yeah.
Like, if you video game, you do say it sometimes, so I can't say I
know.
haven't done it, and I know you have for a fact. So don't sit there shitting on that when I know for a fact you've done something similar.
Either way, early 1997. So by this point, he's had the little Doom levels and his little blog for like a year.
He's like 16, 17 now.
Yeah. So, this is when the blog starts to attract a little bit of attention from people. Starts to show, I mean, obviously there was his little rebel missions he'd already been talked about, but that didn't really alert anyone too badly.
Oh my god, a teenager sneaking out?
Exactly,
Shocking.
yeah. But now his blog posts were starting to become a lot more angry.
Okay.
Especially against society.
Relatable content.
Well, yes. By the end of the year, the site had kind of made a interesting leap.
Nope.
And it was now also giving instructions on how to make explosives. You know, sometimes you got to have a hobby. I was friends with a guy in school.
Oh, don't bring this up.
Who used to just randomly know how to make explosives.
Look, I know
Really
a lot
weird.
of people who know how to make explosives, okay? But to be fair, that is not information that you sit down at a TV screen and decide to share with the world, right? If people want to know how to make explosives, there are other methods, not via blog of a 17-year-old
but it's not
boy.
also really something you just bring up in school discussing, is it? Like, it's just like, okay. Because it's not really something most other kids at that age are thinking about. So it's...
Honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
a bit weird.
what?
That's... You know what? Fine.
Moving on. Confusion.
So his site at that point with his little blog had gotten a few visitors by that point.
Nice. Love that.
Though no one said anything about it until about August 1997.
Ugh.
And this was after Eric Harris had ended a particular blog post about where he detailed his murderous fantasies and ended it with, "All I want to do is kill and injure as many of you as I can, especially a few people like Brooks Brown." So Brooks Brown was
Shout out to Brooks Brown who pissed this guy off.
Yeah,
honestly.
really. Though, yeah, he made a lucky escape, but again, we'll get back to that. Brooks Brown was a classmate of his.
Shocking.
So Brown's parents actually found this blog post and were like, oh dear, that's not good.
That's concerning.
So they phoned the police, understandably.
I feel like that was a good call.
Yes.
Why do I get the feeling the police did diddly squat?
The police actually did try to get a search warrant for his house. However, for some reason, I'm not quite sure. I did look through stuff and I wasn't quite able to find a reason for it.
Okay. They
But
were told to fuck off?
Well, it never reached a judge. So I'm not quite sure what happened there or why it didn't reach a judge.
Bureaucracy, baby.
But it just didn't. So obviously that never happened.
Got it.
So bit further on, January 30th, 1998. This is a year before the shooting.
Got it.
Harris and Klebold were arrested for breaking into a white van that was parked near Littleton, and they also stole tools and computer equipment in it. They would then attend a joint court hearing.
Okay.
Both pled guilty to a felony charge of theft.
Got it.
The judge sentenced them both to juvie. As a result, both of them had to attend mandatory classes such as anger management,
Probably didn't have much of an effect for Eric.
No, yeah, I don't think it did. They both also had to talk with diversion officers. They both were eventually released from this little program they were in, several weeks early because of positive actions in the program, and so were put on probation. So not like a major crime. It sounds like more of a crime out of boredom more than anything.
It's a I see an opportunity and I don't see a reason why I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Kind of moment.
I mean, I don't know how big this place is, but
I'm getting small town vibes.
Yeah, it does hit me as a bit small.
Like rebel missions.
Yeah.
Like that's like you going over to the irritating old lady's house with the barking dog and like fucking around with something.
It gives me slightly rural vibes. I maybe should have looked into it, but yeah, I'm not sure. But so as well as a blog, both Dylan and Eric had journals that they frequently had.
Oh, not a journal.
Yeah. So
incredible useful things for information though.
True, I just never remember to.
Me neither. I tried so many times, it just didn't happen.
Yeah, same. Harris typed out a plan for an attack in his journal, which included possibly escaping to a foreign country after the massacre, or hijacking an aircraft at Denver International Airport and crashing it into New York City.
This kid had fucking issues!
Yeah. In the same journal, there was a bit of a... You know, they talk about relationships and sexuality a little bit as well. Both of them did.
Is he gay?
No.
Oh.
Neither of them are.
Oh.
Like, sometimes people would call them, like, so sorry for this.
Alright.
Can I say it?
No.
I'm not allowed to say it.
No. Homophobic slurs.
As a LGBT woman, I feel like I should be allowed to just say the word.
You get to say it once in this whole podcast.
No.
Once.
And obviously I'm not saying it as an offensive thing. I'm just saying it as factual, what they were sometimes called faggots. Yeah, sorry. Again, sorry. But I'm also LGBT, so believe me.
My soul hurts.
But, yeah, but it was typical kind of insults, like teenagers. But
I'm not gonna lie, I have a question, right? How many times were you, like, called that, or heard somebody calling somebody else homophobic?
It was a thing I've heard guys call guys before, sometimes jokingly, sometimes not. I've personally never been called that.
Because
I've been called the shortened one before.
Okay, alright. Because I've never really heard that being used. Only on TV shows have I ever heard it. I didn't grow up in, like...
I feel like with northern boys it's more common.
Okay, right. Because we had a thing in school where you had to, like, tap the blue chair 20 times before you had to sit down in it, otherwise you were gay, and then everybody used to call out, gay, if you sat down in the chair without tapping it.
God, that's so
right?
innocent,
right?
Is what that is.
Right? That's probably the most homophobic experience I experienced in school.
Oh, no, I've heard some things. Yeah.
That is literally as bad as it got.
No, but the thing is, because, like, well, I mean, I know we both came from small towns, but...
Yeah, but you came from a different kind of small town than I did.
True. No one came out in our... There was one gay guy in our school, and he got all the shit. No one else was... I'm not going to say brave enough to come out. Everyone hid it until they got to college. And then people started coming out. That's when I came out.
Because everybody knew it wasn't worth a scrap when you were still in high school.
Because you were going to get shit in school. At least in college, everyone's choosing to be wherever they are in it. You're only there with half the people you probably went to school with. They're probably at the other one. Because there was 2 colleges in Grimsby. So, you know, and then it's like, the days were different and stuff. And like, you could just leave whenever you wanted to. So it was a lot safer environment to come out.
You went to college, I went to sixth form.
Yeah.
There was no difference to school.
Sure, fair.
It was the exact same.
It
was the exact same class. Maybe 10% of students from external schools who wanted to transfer schools because Bishop was the better sixth form in Kettering. Every 90% of the students had like already spent like 5-6 years together. We were on the same campus, and you had like 3 or 4 classes a day, so the majority of them stayed full of the day anyway and just studied in their free periods and then went home like the rest of the kids.
To be fair, like, a different part of the school had a sixth form, so we could have stayed, but everyone hated the school, and hated where we were. So you also still had to wear, like, uniforms and stuff in the sixth form.
No, we had office attire.
Yeah, so no, we all just went, well, most of us went to, like, just college.
Fair enough. Anyway, continuing.
But yeah, so in his journal, when he's discussing sexuality, this is Eric.
Okay.
His was a lot different from Dylan's, and you'll see that when I go into Dylan's bit.
Okay.
Because when we get to this bit about relationships and sexuality in Dylan's bit, very, very innocent and stuff compared to what Eric is thinking about.
Sweet, like, hand-holding, taking a girl out on a date kind of naive shit.
Eric is definitely the more violent of the two.
Oh, he's into, like, rough sex, isn't he?
No.
No? God.
His was, let's put it like this.
Oh, Jesus.
He described his desire for sex with women, especially his desire of raping and torturing women in his bedroom.
Woo, there it is.
He also expressed interest in cannibalism, stating that he would like to dismember a woman with whom he would have animalistic sex and eat her flesh.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to call that, like, edgy teenage.
No.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, no, I didn't think about that during that time either.
There's nothing edgy about that. That's psychopathic.
I'm just trying to come up with reasons. But yes, he was described, in the end, by, like, FBI as a psychopath.
Shocking.
Yes.
Shocking.
I definitely agree, though. Definitely agree. So, he's got one little
say there's a very, very big difference between eating a woman and eating a woman out.
Yes, there is. There is.
Big.
There is.
Massive, important difference.
Jesus. So this bit is mainly to do with their schoolwork.
Okay.
So again, this bit is Eric's, primarily. So during their schoolwork, there were some signs that foreshadowed something a bit ominous in their schoolwork. Shocking. But again, everyone was seeing these things.
Individually.
And yes, but no one was doing anything about it. Because it's just like, maybe to a point there was some people were like, oh, it's probably teenagers being teenagers, you know.
First of all,
also, it's like, to a point, it's like, is it?
I hate escapist excuses like that, right? Teens being teens, kids being kids, boys being boys.
Yeah, I hate that one.
Right? Okay. I hate those because it excuses the bad behaviour of the minority as an acceptable attitude for everybody. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it, right? Because all the time, like, whenever anybody like, in my class was being lazy or, like, not contributing to, like, a group project, everybody would be like, oh, it's just teenagers being teenagers, innit? No, it's lazy being lazy. There are many other teenagers who are not lazy.
Yeah, but I feel like also, like, when, like, you're displaying these kind of things, you really need to nip this shit in the bud real fast. Real fast.
It's like whack-a-mole.
You know, if that don't work, fucking get them in somewhere. Because that shit needs to end.
Gone.
Because otherwise you're going to have situations like this.
First of all, that house that was really good.
And also sounded
Sing like
it
a
really
bitch.
hurt. Yes. Yes, it did. Right, so, in their schoolwork, we have some foreshadowing.
Tell me.
So, they both displayed themes of violence in their creative writing projects, for example. For example, in December 1997, Eric wrote a paper on school shootings titled Guns in School. This was 2 years before the attack. So there was plenty of time to say something about this. 2 years.
I don't know whether to admire the fact that he had the balls to just write a paper on school shootings.
And yeah, but the thing is, these things were accepted by they were like, oh yeah, I'll take this and I'll grade this. But, no. He also wrote a poem from the perspective of a bullet. Bit weird, but alright. He then also wrote a paper on Nazi Germany. And Dylan,
that's a red flag.
Yeah, Dylan wrote a paper on Charles Manson. If you don't remember, that is the guy that had the cult of young people, of hippies, and he persuaded them to go and murder Sharon Tate, who was pregnant, and a bunch of other people in her house.
I remember.
He died not too long ago, actually.
Good.
In jail. In a psychology class,
So
Eric
sad.
wrote that he dreamed of going on a shooting spree with a clipboard. Just wrote that in a psychology class. Why did that psychology teacher not say nothing?
Honestly, that's the biggest red flag I've seen so far.
Do your psychology on him, please.
Shrink this boy.
His journals also described several experimental bomb detonations. He really liked them.
He really did.
In an economics class, Harris made an advert for a business. So this is a very famous thing. You can find this little advert they did online.
Okay.
And it is eerily similar to how the events of the Columbine School shooting played out. So he and Dylan made a video called Hitman for Hire. The year before the shooting. Actually, only a few months before the shooting.
Excuse me?
And they made that on December the 8th, 1998. And they released it in 2000... Well, it was released. I'm going to assume that means, onto, public...
Yes, public
things.
platform.
Yeah, on 2004. It depicts them as part of what they called the Trench Coat Mafia. It's basically, a group of people that wear, trench coats and shit.
No, really?
Yes, it does. Which is basically, yes, a clique in the school who wore black trench coats and, opposed jocks and stuff.
You know what? I rate opposing jocks, though. They got an ego.
Yeah, they also extorted money for protecting preps from bullies.
Okay.
In this video, they wore, obviously, long black trench coats. Yes. Which is the same as they wore on the day of the massacre.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how eerie that must have been, watching somebody walk in a long black trench coat with, guns everywhere?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the video seemed to... it seemed to be kind of like a dress rehearsal kind of thing. It showed them walking the halls of the school, shooting bullets with fake guns.
Oh, that's a bit worrying.
Yeah. So that was that video. Like I said, it's still be found online.
I'm so good, I'm not hearing that.
In 2003, another video was released showing them, like a home video kind of thing.
Okay.
Showing them doing target practice with real guns. On March 6, 1999, very close to the time of the school shooting.
Okay. Yeah.
They would practice more target shooting on a place called Rampart Range with the exact weapons they would use in the massacre.
Oh, so they're revving up.
They're
really
practicing.
Revving up. And they're not being subtle about it either.
No, exactly. And that's the thing. It's you have all these things in your face,
But
and you're not doing anything.
Question, was this the first mass shooting in a school?
I doubt it. No, I can imagine there's probably quite a few before. So I do not think...
It baffles me how we got this far with so many indicators and nothing.
Exactly.
And when they were arrested, it was for a completely unrelated crime.
Yeah. Eric's dad once also found one of his created pipe bombs, but not really much else was written about that, so it's clearly you weren't too bothered by that.
The dad found a pipe bomb.
Yep.
He didn't care.
Yeah, clearly, that's what that is. So we've got a little bit on Dylan, but obviously, like I said, he was definitely the tamer of the two.
Yeah.
Still did very bad things.
I have no doubt.
So he was born September 11th, 1981. Born in Lakewood, Colorado. His parents were pacifists and attended a Lutheran church with all their children. They were very religious.
Sorry, hang on.
Did I say that right? Lutheran?
Lutheran, correct.
Okay,
yes.
good.
No, it's not the Lutheran that I questioned. Pacifist?
Yes.
Pacifist.
Completely, yes, because they were very religious. And all their children were as well.
The irony?
Yeah. So Dylan had, like I said, had also been keeping a journal. And he'd been keeping it since about March 1997, so about 2 years before the attack. As early as early as November of 1997, he had first mentioned going on a killing spree.
Okay. So that's about the time that Eric was making his little levels of Columbine High School.
That was 1996.
It's about the same time, roughly.
But he could have, like I said, I don't think, because he made quite a few levels, some of them are available to the public.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume they are the tame, non-school-related ones. But I'm going to assume it was later than 1996 that he made the ones about his school.
Yeah.
So he like I said, he used the journal as well to, vent about personal problems, as well as, what he might wear and use during the attack. Typical things.
Casual conversations. I'm feeling like I should wear my dark blue jeans. Why are you feeling that? Well, if I wear light wash jeans, the blood's really gonna be really obvious. And I don't want it to be that obvious.
We had to watch out, So, like I said, in both journals, there was plans of an attack.
Okay.
So, like I said earlier, they both wrote about relationships and sexuality. This is what I mean by saying these were very different types of people.
Okay.
So obviously Eric wrote about, raping and torturing and eating a woman.
Yeah, I did.
Dylan's was expressing shame for his sexual interests, which included things like bondage and maybe a foot fetish.
Oh. Okay.
Two very different sides of
that is. First of all, honey, never be ashamed of a foot fetish, right? I personally don't enjoy it.
Yeah, same.
But, it's only a foot fetish.
You'll try it once, I suppose.
Exactly.
Think about it once.
Bondage, not really a red flag for me.
It's
a
not
lot
a red
of people
flag.
a lot of people like bondage and manage to spend their entire lives not shooting up high schools. So
yeah,
not
I'd
really
hope
a red
so.
flag for me. Unfortunately for Eric though, all of his things were red flags.
Yeah,
for
they
me.
really were, wasn't they? Yeah, definitely psychopath behaviour there.
Yeah.
But
and
Dylan, not so much.
shockingly for me, the raping part of Eric was the least alarming.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe the cannibalism was pretty big on there.
Yeah, the cannibalism's high, yeah.
When you take that and then you consider foot fetish, they're not really on the same scale.
They're not.
So this is what I mean about, yes, they were both very bad people and made very bad choices, but also there were two very different people here.
Yeah.
But
two very different
ultimately,
personalities.
together, created a horrible mixture.
Oil and water is still flammable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, can do a lot of damage.
Exactly.
So, in school, Dylan also wrote a short story about a man killing students, but actually this story did worry his teacher, so she told his parents, but not really much else was really done about that. Sounds about right.
Sensing
a theme.
And the theme is worrying me.
Yeah. Both of them had also actively researched things like wars and murders. Not really surprising.
Wars? That's interesting, right? Because normally I'd say, you want to research, shootings and murders, drive-by shootings, attacks, things like that. War, though, makes it sound like...
Yeah, but it's still very violent.
True, but war makes it sound like it's one person fighting against an authority or a power.
Yeah, but we don't actually fully know their motives, so maybe they were. But their motive is something that's very highly argued.
But, especially with, the comment you made earlier about, Eric's growing hatred of society in general.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a lot about the world on a whole that he was very angry about.
He was
people
just
he
a
wanted to
very
punish.
angry man who just wanted to harm others. For some reason.
I mean, I think we got that bit.
Well, yes. So, like I said, obviously they both were enrolled in video production classes, which is also when they did that Event for Hire video. They also, using the school video equipment, they recorded a mixture of 5 tapes. Only 2
Oh.
of these have ever been released to the public. This ties into what I was describing earlier with the Doom levels of what's called lost tapes, lost media, that kind of thing.
It's not necessarily lost, it's just not viewable.
Yes. These missing tapes, say missing very loosely, were called the basement tapes.
I think I've heard about that.
Yeah, they're very infamous. So, like I said, the 2 that were released were Hitman for Hire, like I said, both can be viewed online, and Rampart Range, which is when they were target practicing a few months before.
Got it. Ramparts, again, castles, war.
Yeah, true.
Interesting choice.
Only a part of a third one was released.
Okay.
Called Radioactive Clothing. The remaining 3 tapes detailed their plans, their reasons for the massacre, which for some reason has never been shared. Yes.
Oh,
including...
so they know the motives, they're just not releasing the motives.
Like I said, I don't know why they haven't. I mean, I understand why they haven't shared them, but yeah, why wouldn't they share just some of the stuff that had been said, maybe?
Even if they were just to be like, oh, it was a hate crime.
Yeah, then that would be it. Fair enough. Yeah, we'd have that.
We have something. We had some kind of explanation, but leaving it unanswered is a bit weird.
Yeah, they shared the ways they would hide their weapons, and how they were deceiving their parents and families into thinking nothing weird was happening.
When something very weird was happening.
Yeah. Most of them were shot in Eric's Harris family basement. And like I said, this came to know as basement tapes. Yeah. 30 minutes before the Columbine High School shooting, they made the final tape.
Okay.
And it's them saying goodbye, apologising to their friends and family for what they were about to do. Only selected few journalists and those of the victims' families that wanted to see them were ever allowed to see them.
I suppose in a way as well, like, maybe from the police's perspective, I feel like the people, like, why would they keep the motives hidden? I don't know. But I don't know, I get the feeling that, like, the police let the people who needed to know, and then kept the rest quiet because, you know, these boys didn't need any more infamy for what they've done.
True, they did have a lot, yeah.
Like, they're already a bloody household name with the Columbine shooting. Like, even if you don't know, even if you don't know who the perpetrators was, you know what they did. Like,
but I think you're more likely to, or at least recognise the names of the perpetrators than the victims.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even get a full list of the victims.
Fucking hell.
So, and I apologise for that. I
feel like maybe there's like some truth to that. Like, you see it all the time on TV, like people being like trying to be like these infamous murders on TV shows, and then the cop turns around and goes, "Not if they're anonymous," and then there's just like this big question mark over the murderer's picture.
Yeah.
Like, taking away that little bit of infamy that they were working so hard to get as like a fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, I feel maybe that's a little bit to blame for us not knowing the motives, because to be honest, us knowing the motives doesn't really change anything, does it?
No, but I think, I don't know if it would lead to, like, I wouldn't say a final nail in the coffin, but I don't know, I think there's a lot of conspiracy people out there that just maybe need to be shut down with the actual reason, and then it can be put to rest and then never touched again.
But it wouldn't be. Well, you know,
logically, I know.
Even if you gave people an answer, the conspiracy theorists would still say it was a cover-up.
Yeah, true. Rumouredly, and I'm not sure how true this is, that's why I put that there, allegedly, the tapes were destroyed in 2011.
Okay.
And that was to avoid inspiring future incidents.
Do you know what? I understand that.
But also clearly hasn't worked very well, though, has it? Because, you know...
But
non-stop school shootings is still a thing.
But Columbine is still one of the most horrific ones, like the most successful ones.
But people have still been inspired by that crime.
True. But
So I don't think there's really any way you can stop that from happening.
I don't think stop it, but I feel like not directly adding fuel to the
Reduce it.
fire is a good idea.
Dylan, really random, also randomly once brought a pipe bomb to work and just not really much happened.
Work?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe you should try that, Becky.
Bring a pipe? No.
Yeah, just see what would happen.
It's an American company, Beth.
Yeah,
What do you
that's a
think's
fair
going to
point.
happen?
Yeah, that's fair. They're probably used to that. So,
Leave it in your bag, Becky, not on the line.
Alright, shit, you're right.
It's not sanitised.
My bad. Alright, so unfortunately, we are into the event. So this first little paragraph is just a little thing of, what did they bring into the school?
It's a paragraph.
They brought quite a bit.
Okay.
Some things they didn't use. A lot they did. So, inventory. 2 9mm guns. 2 12-gauge shotguns. A 995 carbine rifle. A pump shotgun. A semi-automatic handgun. A double-barreled shotgun. They also constructed 99 bombs, including pipe bombs, carbon dioxide cartridges filled with gunpowder, Molotov cocktails, and propane tanks. They made 2 car bombs. They had 8 pipe bombs just in Eric's car, and there was 1 in Klebold's. Both were equipped with knives, though the knives were never used in the attack. The knives, though, Eric Harris had a boot knife and a machete Bowie knife, which had the machete had a swastika on for some reason. Let's not go into that. Klebold was carrying a cobra knife and a switchblade. Like I said, knives were not used in the attack, though.
These boys
but
were
let's just say
armed to the teeth.
they were prepared and, probably had been planning it for a while.
I was going to say, with the amount of time they're planning, I hope they're prepared.
Yes. Well, I kind of hope not, but yeah, they were.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. So, it all happened on April 20th, 1999. I just turned 1. Just want to let everyone know that.
What year?
1999.
April.
Yes.
It would have been right before I went to school.
Yeah, you were right. Well, you're only a year and a half older than I am.
I would have been like 3 or 4 months before I went to school.
Mm.
Oh, I remember my parents mentioning this.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised.
Like, they came home from work and they saw that the Columbine shooting was happening. And they're like, my mum was like freaking the fuck out because I was supposed to be entering into school at the age of 4 in like 3 or 4 months. Like, she was freaking. I remember her telling me that when I went to uni because she was like getting the same fears.
Yeah. It was a Tuesday morning, April 20th, 1999. Harris and Klebold placed 2 duffel bags in the cafeteria. Each bag contained propane bombs set to detonate during the A lunch shift, which began at 11:15 a.m. No witnesses recalled seeing the duffel bags being added to the sort of bag area because there was over 400 or so backpacks already in the cafeteria in this little bag section of the area.
Yeah.
So no one really
took 2 notice of 2 bubble bags being added to this.
There's also a bit of argument about whether or not that part was actually caught on CCTV because a lot of it was caught on school security cameras. So you can actually, literally, if you go on YouTube, you can find a lot of clips of the actual attack happening.
Jesus Christ.
Which is also horrible to see.
Yeah, because there's nothing I like doing in my free time like watching kids be shot to death.
I don't think you see the actual shooting, but you might see, like, yeah, I know, we'll go into it. So they also had 2 backpacks filled with pipe bombs, aerosol canisters, and small propane bombs, and they put these in a field before the attack, about 3 miles away from the school, and this was to distract emergency services so that they
could get away.
No, not so. So that they would be called to there while they attacked the school. So then they would have less
Damn.
people coming to the school.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, it was planned.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's some
So then,
premeditation right there.
Emergency services could not get there straight away because they were away dealing with a little red flag thing that they'd done and set.
Jesus.
Only, so with those 2 backpacks that went off, only the pipe bombs and one of the aerosol canisters detonated, and it only caused a small fire. But it was very quickly extinguished by the fire department. But, you know, it was meticulous. You know, it did all... It was all part of the plan.
It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It drew people out of the town.
Exactly. So when they arrived at the school, they actually ran into Brooks Brown, if you remember who that is.
Yes, the person that Eric wanted to kill.
Yes.
Specifically.
Yes.
He said that he wanted to kill or injure anybody that he could, especially if they were like Brooks Brown.
Yes. And obviously they had previously had issues with Brooks, specifically with Eric. Eric actually told... So basically, like I said, Eric wasn't known to, like, miss school.
Yeah.
So Eric had actually missed a test from one of the previous days. So Brooks actually went up to him and was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you missed the test. Like, that's not like you."
Yeah.
And Eric literally just said to him, "Right, I like you now, so you should leave and go home." And Brooks Brown didn't really question it. He planned to skip the next few classes anyway, and he did.
And now he's alive.
And he's alive. So for some reason, Eric spared him that day. I don't know why. But Brooks Brown really had a close counter that day. He really did. And luckily he survived.
Do you know, that's
kind of creepy though.
That's like getting on the plane that crashed into the Twin Towers and the pilot going, "This isn't your flight."
Literally, yeah, that's some butterfly level shit, that is. Right? Yeah, it's creepy.
And you being like, "The fuck?"
That's a close fucking call, is what that is. So, while they were at the car, obviously they suited up, got their inventory all ready and out. Harris and Klebold armed themselves with straps and webbing to conceal their weapons under their trench coats.
Okay,
and these are the same trench coats used in that Hitman Fire video.
Yeah.
They also then had, like, big luggage bags on, like duffel bags.
Yeah.
That was filled with ammunition, and other weapons.
You know, it's not light work going to war, you know.
No, clearly not.
Lots of baggage.
It's not light work, you know. Clearly doing a school shooting. Jesus, not for these ones. They've gone all out.
Honestly.
Harris. So Eric wore a military. I don't know what this is.
Go on then.
Bandolier. Yes, don't know what that is.
You know in Red Dead, where you've got that thing that goes across your shell and it has all the cartridges in it.
Yes.
Bandolier.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Bandolier.
Yes. Yeah, because the thing is, I've seen pictures of them, like, going into the shooting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Bandolier, that's what it's called. But, to be fair, not a bad guess.
And a white t-shirt with the inscription, "Natural Selection," in black letters. Which is apparently a mantra that he'd adopted.
Bro.
Makes sense. It makes sense for him, to be fair.
Bro.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. That's the funniest thing I've heard all episode.
I'm not gonna lie, though. Those t-shirts get really fucking sold out. And because of him. Yeah.
Do me a favour, right? If I ever point at a t-shirt that ever in any way refers to Darwin's theory of natural selection, I want you to wallop me so hard.
Yeah,
I'll be like,
alright, fucking Eric Harris, alright, calm down. Okay.
I want you to take the closest bar of clotted cream fudge and I want you to clop me with it.
I'll be like, right, let's get you a t-shirt that says the literal opposite. Whereas Dylan wore a black t-shirt with the word wrath in red letters.
I feel like they've thought about this.
Yeah. Though I feel like Eric was more suited to... Maybe he should have worn both. I feel like he was the more angry one out of both. But, you know, someone had to wear each, so, you know. I don't know how...
They couldn't both wear natural selection.
True.
And Eric definitely gives me the vibes of, I've already got that, you have to pick something else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the little, what shall we wear in their fucking journals. No, I'm picking the natural selection one. You can't have that one. I've already wrote it in my journal that that's what I'm wearing.
You can have wrath or hatred. It's your choice. Hatred is a mortal sin.
Honestly. But mine's the cooler one. So...
I prefer red, so I'm going to go with wrath. Thank you.
Red's my favourite colour, so that's the one we're going for. Jesus. So, like I said, they had 2 propane tanks in the fucking cafeteria.
Okay.
These failed to detonate. Thank God. Because...
I just want to put the number of attacks that have now not detonated. We're 2 for 2.
True. But also, again, thank God.
Honestly.
Because they put these there, timed to detonate in the busiest period of the school.
Yeah.
So
they would have obliterated about 300 kids.
Their kill count would have been astronomical. Insanely.
Jesus.
Had these explosives detonated as intended, they would have killed or severely wounded about 488 students that were in the cafeteria at that time. And damaged the school's structure, which would have collapsed the library into the cafeteria, maybe killing even more staff and students.
Yeah.
So it's really fucking lucky that that shit did not go off. And believe me, they even go back to them later to try and make them go off, and it still doesn't happen. So clearly they're just shit at building bombs.
For all the...
For all the little...
For all the blanks they did, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly. So about 11:19 a.m, the shooting begins.
Okay.
So 17-year-old Rachel Scott and her friend Richard Castaldo were having lunch and sitting on the grass next to the west entrance of the school.
Okay.
Dylan Klebold threw a pipe bomb towards the car park, though for some reason, once again, they're just shit at building bombs.
Because it didn't detonate.
It partially detonated,
but
it only caused smoke to come off.
Okay.
So the two thought it was just a prank. You know, seniors would do weird little pranks like that all the time. You know, especially closer to them graduating.
Yeah, senior pranks.
So they just thought it was that. So Eric and Dylan turned to where Rachel Scott and Richard Castaldo were laying in the grass, and shots were fired. Rachel was killed instantly when she was hit 4 times with rounds fired from Eric's carbine rifle, and 1 shot was even to the left temple.
That was a kill.
Richard Castaldo was shot 8 times in the chest, arm and abdomen by both Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. He fell unconscious to the ground and was left paralysed below the chest.
Damn. And ladies and gentlemen, we are off.
Yes, we are.
To a start.
Harris took off his trench coat then and aimed his carbine down the west staircase in the direction of 3 students. Daniel, I'll just say also if I mispronounce any of these surnames, so sorry. Daniel Rodborough, Sean Graves, and Lance Kirkland. The students thought they were paintball guns.
That's a deadly mistake to make.
And they went to walk up the staircase, which was below the shooters.
Yeah.
Harris fired 10 times, killing Daniel and injuring Graves and Kirkland. Just straight up shooting in school now.
Yeah.
William David Sanders was a teacher and coach at school. He was in the cafeteria when he first heard the gunfire and began warning students. He comes up again later.
Yes.
Harris then turned west and fired 7 shots into the direction of 5 students sitting on a grassy hillside near the steps. Michael Johnson was hit in the face, leg and arm, but managed to run and escape.
Damn.
Mark Taylor was shot in the chest, arms and leg and fell to the ground, where he faked his death.
Jesus. You know when you have to fake your death at the age of, 17?
The other 3 that were there escaped uninjured. He actually also wiped himself in injured people's blood to fake his death. And he had to lay there as apparently at one point Dylan tripped over him as he was going past.
Oh.
And thinking that he dead, he still apologised and was like, sorry about that, and continued on. But luckily he managed to give the illusion that he was dead. But they actually, because that was near the cafeteria.
That's terrifying.
They come back to the cafeteria towards the end of the spree, and he is still having to lay there pretending he is dead. So, Jesus.
Honestly, at that point, if I'm pretending to play dead, I'm staying there until somebody comes and gets me.
Yeah.
I'm not moving.
Yeah.
I am not moving.
Dylan walked down the steps towards the cafeteria. He shot first at the body of Dan Robert with a shotgun. That was the guy that managed to escape.
Yeah.
And then came up to Lance Kirkland, like I said, who was wounded and laying on the ground. Pretending to be dead. He was weakly calling for help. Dylan said, "Sure, I'll help you."
Oh, and killed him.
And shot him in the jaw with a shotgun. And he fucking survived.
This guy's fucking Superman.
Jesus. Dylan only briefly entered the cafeteria. And did not shoot at the several people that were still inside hiding. Officials speculated that Dylan probably went in there briefly just to check on the propane bombs. Eric Harris was still on top of the stairs at this point, shooting and severely wounding and partially paralysed a 17-year-old Anne-Marie Hochhalter as she tried to flee. They then reunited at the same staircase. They each shot once at students that were standing close to the soccer field. Didn't manage to hit anyone. They walked towards the west entrance and throw pipe bombs in several directions, including onto the roof, but only a few of these managed to detonate. Didn't do massive damage.
Okay.
Or hit anyone.
More like a scare tactic.
Yeah. Just to cause chaos, I think.
Yeah.
An art teacher, Patty Nielsen, heard commotion and went out of I'm going to assume it was an art room.
Yeah.
That they were in with a student, Brian Anderson, and went to check out the commotion.
Oh, no.
As Anderson opened the first set of double doors, the gunman shot out the window, injuring him with flying glass. The art teacher was also hit in the shoulder with shrapnel. They both ran back down the hall towards the library, and the teacher, Patty, alerted the students inside the library to the danger, telling them to hide under the desks and keep silent, where she dialed 911.
So this is the first time we've had anybody go for a phone at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
And she hid under the library's administrative counter to phone the police.
Okay.
I'd like to say, yes, there's a lot of very dark bits of the story, but for me, the worst part of the shooting is inside the library.
Okay.
Which they are not into yet. Yes, I know they've already killed and paralysed people, but for me personally, even reading it, the library is easily the worst area.
Okay. Thank you for the warning.
Yeah, you're gonna need it. The library is rough.
I took my alcohol downstairs, goddammit.
I'm so sorry.
You should be.
So, at 11:24 is when the first call comes through.
So we are, they started at 17, didn't they?
Let me scroll back.
It was 11:17, I think you said.
11:19 is when the first shots happened.
So we're
5 minutes, 6 minutes?
6 minutes
Yeah,
in?
that's it. And several people have already been killed and paralysed. Yeah.
And that motherfucker lost his jaw.
He did, but yet fucking survived. So
honestly, kudos to him.
Yeah. So 11:24, Deputy Neil Gardner got a radio call where he was already dealing with some of the police stuff, but this is when he got a call to say that there was a shootout in the school. So he managed to get to the school.
Okay. Strong start.
Where Eric fired 10 shots at him. And the two actually engaged in a shootout. Neither one was hit.
Okay.
That is when, obviously, he was like, fucking back up, please. What the fuck? And that's when he called it into the police.
Okay.
But obviously, emergency services are still dealing with these two backpacks, so it might take a little bit of time. By this point in the attack, Eric has fired his gun 47 times.
Jeez.
Dylan has shot 5. Do you see what I mean? One of them is clearly the leader and more violent of the two. I'm not saying that disregards anything about Dylan.
No, he still fired his weapon.
Yeah, he's still, shooting
voluntarily.
at people. Yes.
Yeah.
But
I feel like one of them wants it more than the other.
Oh, for sure. One of them clearly wants to hurt people hurt more people.
Indiscriminately.
Yes, than the other. Dylan shot Stephanie Monson in the ankle, but she managed to be able to walk out the school.
Oh.
I do want to give a little warning. It's going to get a bit dark. They're heading to the library. But before they get there, they had another shootout with the police. As the police at this point, after a few more minutes, obviously some more police had turned up, the police were trying to get to and rescue injured students that were outside.
Okay.
So they...
Oh, yeah, because there's people outside the gates and there's people on the football fields.
Yeah. And they're just shooting at the kids. But then they see that the police are now trying to help the kids.
Yeah.
So now they're shooting at them and the kids.
Yeah.
No one was hit in this attack either.
Okay.
They really just are not good at shooting at police, are they, at this point? This is the second shootout with police.
But at the same time, like, I feel like they weren't going for that kind of range.
Oh yeah, they're not. Yeah, right. Not far weapons, are they?
Those guns aren't distance weapons.
Eric has a rifle, sure.
Yeah, but it's not a scoped rifle.
Yeah, it doesn't say anywhere that it is. So yeah,
and if it was scoped, they would have said so.
And it's not like they're wanting specifically to kill police.
I mean, I reckon they wouldn't mind.
Yeah, they won't mind, but it's not like they went to a police station and shot up. They went into a high school. Yeah. So
they're looking to kill kids and teachers, not police.
Or just anyone.
Plus, it's more effort to kill a police officer.
Yeah, sure. So if you remember earlier, Dave Sanders was in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
He is a teacher.
Yeah.
He was trying to help students evacuate.
Yeah. And
alerting everyone to the danger.
Yes.
He's back.
Back again. Davey's back.
So he and another student were at the end of a hallway when, unfortunately, they bumped into the killers.
Oh.
Yeah, they were in the same hallway and they were like, oh,
that's
shit.
The wrong corridor,
That is not where we want to be. So he gestured for the students that were still trapped in the library to stay there.
Shit is about to go down.
The teacher, Dave and the other student that he was with turned to run down the opposite direction when they saw Dylan and Eric coming down the same way. To which, obviously, they both shot at them both. Harris hit Dave twice in the back and once in the neck, hitting his teeth on exit, the one in the neck. Oh. Yes, that's at bad angle. Luckily, the student was missed from the bullets. So the latter, a student ran into a science classroom and warned everyone to hide. Where Dylan walked towards Dave, who had collapsed from the gunshots, tossed a pipe bomb, and then returned to Harris, who was up near the entrance of the library. Don't think the pipe bomb went off. Oh. Thank God.
I'm gonna say, getting shot's bad enough, but a pipe bomb to the face?
Yeah. Students, however, very bravely went to go rescue their fucking teacher, who had been trying to rescue everyone else.
Nice.
So they went back for him. And they took him into a room and barricaded themselves in. Okay. They also put a big sign up for police to see at a window being like,
injured man.
It said something like, there's someone dying up here or something like that. They tried their best to do as much first aid as possible, and to stop the bleeding. The police, not knowing when the attack was over, tried to say that they didn't know if the shooters had, like, done it as, like, a trap. That sign. So they did not go to that room, where, unfortunately, the teacher later died of his injuries.
Yeah.
He was the only teacher to die in the attack.
Damn.
Yeah. So now we are getting into the rough patch. More so. 11:29, we're in the library.
Okay. So 10 minutes in now.
52 students, 2 teachers, and 2 librarians were inside the library hiding. And I mean hiding everywhere, under desks, behind bookshelves.
Any flat surface that might conceal them.
Any little room they could get into, they were hiding.
Yeah. And
usually in groups as well, like under the desks. There would be like 3 or 4 of them at a time. So Harris was the first to fire in the library. Fired a shotgun twice at a desk. Just, let the kids and people know that were inside, that they were there. Yeah. And that people were gonna die. And the library, as far as I'm aware, only had 1 exit.
Which they were covering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no way for them to get out. Yeah. Student Evan Todd had been standing near a pillar when the shooters entered the library and took cover behind a photocopier. He was hit by wood splinters to the eye when he shot at the desk, which sounds horrible. Ooh. And also wood splinters in the lower back, but luckily was not seriously injured. Though wood splinters in the eyes sounds like not a nice time, and also sounds like a really bad injury. So...
But not as bad as a bullet to the head.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So the gunman walked fully into the library, towards the 2 rows of computers. This one is particularly horrible. Sitting at the north row, because he couldn't get under the desk, was a disabled student who just had to sit. I'm going to assume he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Was a disabled student, Kyle Velasquez.
Yeah.
Dylan fired his shotgun, fatally hitting him in the head and the back. He essentially had no chance of survival.
Yeah, that was not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, what was he going to do? Yeet himself off into the middle of the corridor? Like, there was no way.
Throughout the massacre in the library, they backed orders and stuff. No one listened. But, they ordered people to get up, said things like how long they've been waiting for this, seemed to be enjoying themselves, and, for example, after shooting would say things like, woo! Just having a great old time, while the rest of the people hiding were not. They shot out some of the windows, as some more police had arrived. Officers returned fire, they had a little gunfight, once again no one was shot at. The gunman retreated from the windows. Then Dylan removed his trench coat. He then fired his shotgun at a nearby table, injuring 3 students, Patrick Island, Daniel Stapleton, and McKay Hall. Eric then walked towards the lower row of computer desk with his shotgun, fired a single round under the first desk while he was bent on one knee. He hit a 14-year-old Stephen Cunrow with a mortal wound to the neck. He then moved to the next computer desk, injuring a 17-year-old Casey Ruckseger with a shot which passed completely through her right shoulder, grazed her neck, and severed a major artery.
She died.
While she was gasping in pain, Eric told her to quit her bitching. Eric then walked to the table south of the lower end of the computer table where there was 2 students underneath. Cassie Bernal and Emily Watt. Harris slapped the surface of the computer desk twice and then knelt down and said, "Peekaboo."
He's just playing games
Before
at this point.
shooting Bernal once in the head with a shotgun, killing her instantly.
He's just playing games at this point.
Yeah, they're having fun with it. After fatally shooting Bernal, Harris turned to the next table, where Brie Pasquale sat next to the table rather than under it. Harris then asked if she wanted to die, and she responded, begging for her life.
As you would.
Eric then laughed and responded, oh god. We're still good. Sorry. The screen went off and I got scared.
We were so into this that she just died of the computer.
We did. Yes, so Eric laughed and responded, "Everyone's gonna die." When Dylan said, "Shoot her," Eric said, "No, we're gonna blow up the school anyway." So she actually
lived.
Yes.
Fuck you, Eric.
Dylan then noticed Island, one of the students from earlier, trying to provide first aid to Hall, which was obviously another one of the students, who had suffered a wound to his knee. As Island tried to help Hall, his head rose above the table, trying to help his friend. Dylan then spotted him.
Shot him in the head.
Shot him a second time, hitting him twice in the head and once in the foot. Island was then knocked unconscious, but survived. Dylan then walked towards another table where he discovered an 18-year-old Isaiah Scholes, 16-year-old Matthew Ketchner, and a 16-year-old Craig Scott, who was Rachel from earlier's younger brother. Bear with me.
Rachel's dead though, so.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel was the first victim, wasn't she, really?
I can't remember. I feel like I've said so many names.
Rachel Scott was the girl who was outside with that boy when they first turned up, having the eating outside.
Oh, it could have been. Yes, it could have been. Yeah.
I remember these things. Don't
Yeah,
doubt me.
so these lot were hiding underneath. Dylan called out to Harris that he had found, I'm not going to say the word, an N-word.
Oh.
And tried to pull Scholes out from under the table.
Yeah, the swastika makes a lot more sense now. He's racist as well. Plebeian.
Eric left Pasquale, so that's the only reason she survived, because they found a black student. Sam was more interested in this. So that's the only reason she survived. And joined him. The gunmen, according to witnesses, they taunted Scholes, the black student, for a few seconds, making racial comments. The gunmen then both fired under the table. Mm-hmm. Eric shot Scholes once in the chest, killing him instantly. Dylan shot and killed Ketchter. Though Scholes, the black student, was not shot in the head, Dylan said, "I didn't know black brains could fly that far." Meanwhile, Rachel's brother had survived and was uninjured, laying in the blood of his friends, pretending to be dead. He was actually laying under his friends' bodies, and in a documentary I saw, he said that he felt their last breaths. Yeah.
Shit.
Harris then yelled, "Who's ready to die next?" They threw an explosive, but luckily...
Some
fucking student fucking Yahtzeed that shit back, and it went off midair. That one did go off.
Ooh.
But someone fucking was like, "Nope," fucking grabbed that shit and threw it back. Fucking hell, that's ballsy.
Honestly.
Because that would have killed someone.
Yeah, that would have killed a lot of people.
Yeah. Eric then shot towards the closest table he was now near, hitting and injuring 17-year-old Matt Kingston in the head and the shoulder. He then turned towards the table to his left and fired, injuring 18-year-olds Lisa Kurtz, Lauren Townsend, and Valine Schnur with the same shotgun blast. Injured all three with one shot.
Jesus.
Dylan then moved towards the same table, fired several shots with his Tech 9.
It's a 9mm rifle. It's a 9mm handgun.
Which then killed Townsend, which was one of the ones from the shotgun blast. One of the ones from the shotgun blast, Valine, Dylan actually, she survived from the shotgun blast.
I had a feeling she didn't survive much longer, though.
He went up to her and asked if she believed in God. She replied that she did. Dylan said why and commented, "God is gay." Really random. But left her alive. Eric then approached another table where two girls were hiding. He bent down. I know. He bent down to look at the two girls hiding under a table who were crying, dismissed them as pathetic, but moved on.
If this were me, I'd be sobbing.
Yeah.
Sobbing.
Eric then moved to another table where he fired twice, injuring 16-year-olds Nicole Nowlin and John Tomlin. Tomlin actually moved out from under the table because he was obviously still alive. Like I said, Nicole Nowlin was still alive, but Tomlin decided to get out from under the table where Dylan shot him repeatedly, killing him.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think under the table's any safer.
True, but I don't think it was probably the wisest option to try and get out from under the table if they've already shot at you once. There was a 16-year-old girl named Kelly Fleming, like Brie Pascal, had sat next to the table rather than under it, because obviously there's quite a few students in there, not everyone was going to fit under the tables.
No.
Eric shot her with this shotgun, hitting her in the back and killing her instantly.
Right, okay, well, she's dead.
He shot at the table behind her, hitting Townsend, who was already dead, from Dylan. I think it was. He hit Kreutz again and wounded another 18-year-old Gianna Park.
We're really just going.
Yeah, it's the library is a massacre.
Yeah,
it's a bad time in the library. You could not have picked a worse place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no getting out of that.
Yeah, exactly.
There's very limited hiding.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if I think about my secondary school and my library, there's one exit.
It's not on the ground floor either.
No, mine wasn't either. Mine was on the first floor. And it was... There was one area, maybe, and it was this little rectangular kind of fish finger shape. And down the centre was like a big group table for 10. And then there were computer booths going diagonally up until the end, where there were like 2 or 3 at the end. But they were all open desks.
Oh yeah, like ours, yeah.
So, I don't know about you, but I would have been fucked, because all of mine...
Ours was luckily on the ground floor, however was very open planned. It had maybe 3 round desks.
Yeah.
That you could see under.
Yeah, same.
And it had just computers along the walls, all open desks. Yeah. So yeah, there would have been nowhere to
There's
hide
no
there
alcohol
at all.
There's nothing that you could
with
have
one exit as well.
Yeah, same.
Dylan then encountered one of his friends in the library, who he had a little conversation with, and the friend was like, what are you up to? And Dylan was like, oh, just killing people, And then he said, are you going to kill me? And Dylan let him go. And he quickly got the fuck out of the library, let me tell you. He wasn't waiting for Eric. Bye. He left and survived.
Do you know what? I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Because if I were one person that a guy on a mass murdering spree let go, the guilt.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah. But at least maybe you could tell someone, oh, you might want to go to the library. It's all happening in there.
Well, I mean, it all was happening because he shot almost everybody.
The police, you might want to check that out. So then Eric turned and fired his carbine rifle at the table north of where he previously had been, hitting the ear and hand of a 15-year-old Daniel Moser. Moser then actually retaliated to
Guess
Eric
why?
by he either shoved a chair at Eric, or grabbed at his leg, which then angered Eric. So then he fired again and hit him in the center of his face at close range, killing him instantly. But, yeah.
Retaliation was not a good idea.
No, but you know what? Fuck it, it's ballsy.
Honestly, at this point, probably gonna be dead anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. He might have just been shot again anyway. So, you know, fuck yeah. He's also spoken very highly about in documentaries, that one.
Yeah.
That one. Eric then moved south and fired 3 more shots under another table, critically injuring 2 17-year-olds, Jennifer Doyle and Austin Eubanks. Dylan then shot once, fatally wounding 17-year-old Corey DePuta at 11:35. There were no further victims.
Oh. Besides, you know, the 2 shooters.
Well, not quite yet.
Oh.
They had killed 10 people alone in the library, though it just sounds like it was so many more.
Honestly.
Oh, God. When I was typing it out, I was like, no, it was that 10. And wounded 12, just in the library alone.
I feel like it was way more than 12.
Harris and Klebold entered the science area then, so left the library.
Oh.
Entered the science area, where, if you remember from earlier, some people were hiding.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with the teacher that died.
Yeah. Luckily, they couldn't get into that bit. So decided to start a little fire in the room, which a student, after they had gone, came out and put out.
Nice.
At 11:44, they were captured on CCTV as they re-entered the cafeteria. The recording shows Eric crouching against the rail on the staircase, firing towards the propane bombs, still trying to set them off. Still didn't set them off, though. They got bored of that, bored of the bombs not going off. They did manage to set a little fire in there. I think they threw some, like, Molotovs or something. They threw something else towards the propane tanks, started a little fire, but they just didn't go off.
Didn't detonate.
So they got bored of that, returned to the library.
Where everybody had fucked off.
No.
Oh.
They were still in there.
Oh, Jesus.
Because obviously, if, you know, I think it depends on... I don't know what I'd do in that situation, but some people are going to stay there until they know that the police are, like, coming.
Yeah.
And some people are going to chance it and try and escape, but you don't know where they are.
Yeah, you don't want to... If they've moved on from you...
But you also
and you
don't
move
want to
back into their path again...
Yeah. You are going to fucking die then.
You're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So at least if you stay there, the chances are that they're not going to come back around. Or logically, they won't come back around.
But there was also quite a few people here who were A, gravely injured, but were being very quiet, and B, there were some people, like the guy that was laid under his friend's bodies, that were faking death.
Yes.
But like I said, they didn't shoot anyone when they re-entered the library. They had another police shootout. Obviously, there was more police at this point. No one was hit.
Got it.
By 12:05, all gunfire from the school had ceased. By 12:08, both gunmen had killed themselves. In the library.
Okay.
Eric Harris had sat down with his back to a bookshelf and fired his shotgun through the roof of his mouth.
Alright.
Dylan Klebold then went on his knees and shot himself in the left temple with his Tech-9.
Okay.
And that was both in the library. Again, the students in the library did not move, even when the shooters had killed themselves. So, while this was all going on, obviously families and friends and stuff were told, you know, it was all over the news. Families were told to gather at a nearby elementary school to await information and to await
the return of their kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of the kids turned up on these buses, these coaches. So after quite a few coaches had been, the rest of the families that were there were told to wait because there was another bus coming, but there wasn't another bus coming. All the buses had been. So yeah, so they just waited for a bus of their kids to come who just weren't coming.
Wow, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, like...
whoever the fuck told them that needs to be fucking dealt with. Jesus. What the fuck?
Like... but at the same time, like... You want to know. You want to know who you have dead in front of you before you start saying your kid's dead.
Exactly, but at the same time, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, no, just wait, there's going to be another bus. When there isn't. Because, Jesus Christ, then you're just like, at least if you say there's no more buses, they know probably that something's bad has happened to their child. Or at least that they're injured. But if you're just like, oh no, just wait for another bus, and then that bus doesn't turn up. First of all, how long are you waiting?
Honestly.
Second of all, you've just seen all these other buses come, you've seen all these families reunited, and then
you're waiting
like,
for your turn.
Where the fuck is my kid?
I can see where you said it was coming from. Because there is an amount of certainty you need, but I don't feel like he went about it the right way.
I think it was an error.
I don't think
they were told.
Yeah, I don't think he did it the right way, but at the same time, he did need to delay a little bit so they could get information because, you know, he was probably just as panicked as anybody else was. I mean, this was a small town, probably.
Yeah, it does give me that vibe. This
is a rural... These are probably kids that he knows.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, you know... He's got to, look at these kids that have been, shot in the face.
I also don't know who it was that, said that.
No.
Or if it was a police officer or what, but...
Whoever did say it, I feel like it was as much as a panic response as anything.
Yeah, I mean, what would you actually do in this situation?
Yeah, we all criticise people who are in this situation, but at the same time, respectfully, I've never been in that situation. I can't say what I would do with any kind of certainty. I mean, even people in America, I don't think that they would know what they would do, even having witnessed it.
But they get trained on that kind of thing, which I think is absolutely just mental.
On the fact
here we don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
But in 13, there was that TV program 13 Reasons Why, where that main character,
very controversial. I've heard. Never seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen the clip, and he's basically I don't know the exact details, but a friend has died and she committed suicide, and she's left a load of tapes as to her 13 reasons why. And I don't know what led to this thing, but he has a breakdown basically about in the middle of the school, in front of all the students and all the teachers, in the middle of this corridor, at the beginning of a shooter drill, about the absolute fucking absurdity of having to practice being
mental.
Shot at.
It is absolutely mental.
In a place of your education. And he completely loses it. And I looked at him, and I was watching it, and I was like, he's not fucking wrong.
He's not fucking wrong. That's the thing. They think the answer to this kind of thing is to give teachers guns. How about we just give no one guns? Especially children.
Honestly. How do we fix school shootings? Oh, I know. We'll make the 5-year-olds have a bulletproof piece in the back of his rucksack.
Exactly. Teach them how to fucking hide properly.
Did you know, I was on TikTok and I've been watching loads of back to school videos, right? Did you know the majority of kids nowadays have to have a clear rucksack so that people can see when you're bringing a handgun into school?
No, but it's just
Excuse me?
Yeah, I know Britain has its knife problems, but one thing we don't really have to worry about, and I can't think of a single case off the top of my head, is fucking school shootings.
No, but you know why? Because we had one 40 years ago.
Exactly.
And it took one. It took one school shooting with insurmountable consequences for us to go, what the fuck, and change the law.
Yeah, exactly.
One school shooting.
But they have not stopped since this. And, it's just mental. So we're in the aftermath now. Thank God, because...
I swear to God, if one more person got a 12 gauge to the face, I was going to need a coffee break.
Yeah, understandable. It was rough, but we got
Fuck
through
the coffee, actually. Let me just get my beer.
So, the total amount of deaths was 12 students. Granted, though, it feels so many more than that. It really does. 12 students.
I'm kind of surprised, considering how much time they spent at the fucking range.
True, yeah.
You were right,
But
honey.
also, if you think 12 students, 10 of those was in the fucking library.
That was a massacre.
Yeah. That's why I believe strongly that... And again, the library seems to be... I mean, it's not only the place where they killed themselves, but it was also...
Where they spent the longest.
Yeah, and where they seem to have the most fun.
I feel like the aim of the game
Where they were
was
the
the
most
library.
sadistic. I don't know.
But
But,
the thing is-
but clearly they intended to kill all those students in
Yeah,
the
they did.
cafeteria.
But they wanted to hit the hotspots, right?
True.
So, right, you're not in class. Where do you go? The fields, canteen, the library,
Yeah.
right? The fields, they saw, weren't many, but they shot at them on the way, okay? Propane tanks in the canteen, that was there to do blast damage,
Yeah.
right? That was
Luckily
there to
never
obliterate.
worked.
They were never going to have any fun in the canteen.
True.
By their mind. I say fun loosely, right? Because I don't agree with that term fun.
I'm really
right?
glad to hear that.
But the library is where students congregate.
See, luckily, in our school, we were never allowed in the library unless there was a lesson going on in the library.
Oh, we were encouraged to go into the library at all times.
I wish we were, then I would have had more places to go.
No,
But-
we were. The library was very much. Like, I remember when I was
But even
in.
if you think about it in uni terms,
Yeah.
library's going to be popping.
Yeah.
At all times.
All times, anywhere you go in an educational, beside your crackhead school,
Yeah.
libraries are a congregation point for not only students, but teachers and supporting staff as well, right?
True.
And most libraries, I don't know about you, but most libraries only have one entrance and exit.
Yeah, true.
Right? Because they have those little scanners that scan to see whether you're taking books out without checking them out, right? And it makes no sense to have 5 different scanners at 5 different points in the library, okay? You have one entrance, one exit. Right?
Usually they're one and the same.
One and the same. All of them are very... And it's a layout that every student is familiar with.
Yeah.
Right? There is not one student in that school that does not know how the library is laid out, who has not looked at a cubby and gone, hiding. Right? I reckon it was their plan to go to the library, because they seemed very relaxed going there.
They just seem relaxed throughout most
Yeah.
of it, to be honest.
They had
But
the most
had
fun.
a set route that they seem to be going
They
on.
spent the most time, and they methodically... She's lost the screen again.
I'm horrible.
Right, okay, there we go. They spent the most time methodically going round the room, under the desks, row by row, round, group by group, and then when they got to the very end, they left. Right?
Yeah, true.
And then they left the library, and they went to the next
They
area.
definitely focused on the west side of the school.
Yeah.
Because I kept noticing that the west did keep coming up again. So that definitely was their, like, focal point.
Yeah. But, like, I don't know about you, but I knew where people were going to be hanging out. Right? When you're at a school that long, you know where the pupils congregate. You know where the people are going to be at every single time of the day. You ask me, it's easy for students to plan these kinds of things.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Because students are part of the system, and the person who knows the system best is somebody who's within it.
Yeah.
Right?
I know, but yeah, the library by far, like, I'm sorry, yeah, obviously all of it's horrendous, but by far the library is the worst bit.
Well, I mean, there's always a worst bit. I mean, in that last
think-
school shooting you had,
The Sandy Hook.
yeah, when there was that whole class and one fucking kid survived.
Yeah, that was pretty. Oh, like when was that the one where he shot into when they were all hiding in a closet or something,
And he just
and one
peppered
survived.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Only
that was
because they
pretty
were hid
brutal.
under somebody else.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's a similar case here, to be honest.
there's always one spot where the most killing is condensed into the smallest space. And there's always one point in
It
every.
also could have been because they knew by that point when they got to the library, there was quite a few police turning up now.
Yeah.
That little diversion was no longer an issue.
Yeah.
It had been sorted real quick. And now they were getting more heat.
Yeah.
So there was more
But the
chance
only
of
attempt-
police resistance.
The only attempt the police made to come towards the school was to the fields.
Yeah, the police did not try and enter it for quite a while.
No. So all you have to do
Which
is make
also,
enough
poor
noise.
kids in the fucking library
Honestly.
left in there.
Library?
For God knows how long.
Poor kids in the fucking science who had to watch their teacher bleed to death
Yeah.
because the police wouldn't come in.
Yeah, there was a lot of criticism for that. Yeah, the police got a lot of hate for that, which I completely understand. But if you count in the killers, the shooters themselves, in the death toll,
I don't.
Okay, so let's do 12 students, 2 shooters.
Yep.
And 1 teacher
Okay.
were killed. 20 students and 1 teacher were injured as a result of the shootings. 3 more victims were injured indirectly as they tried to escape the school.
Yeah.
On April 30th of that year, a carpenter called Greg Zanis made 15 6-foot-tall wooden crosses to honour those who had died at the school. Daniel Robro's father went down there and destroyed 2 of them. The shooters. Crosses.
Oh, because the guy made crosses for 2 of the shooters.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm with that guy.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm with that guy.
Agree.
Yeah.
There were also 15 trees that had been planted in honour. He's same guy, same father of a student that had died. Cut down 2 of those as well.
Good.
Yeah. Completely agree.
Because you said it yourself, right?
What?
Victims.
Oh, I just realised, I said earlier that I hadn't named the 15 victims, but I guess during that I have.
You did.
Technically.
You named every single person. You named every single person.
Once again, if any of the names were said wrong, I'm so sorry.
Her ability to translate names and speak them is very, very troublesome
really
sometimes.
Is.
But that's the thing, right? Victims. Like, don't get me wrong, the shooters, they had a family, they deserve a resting space.
I think that needs to be thought about as well, but at the same time, there was no reason for this attack.
Right, exactly.
They should not be put in the same thing as the victims.
They deserve a resting place, absolutely. They deserve...
Maybe in their little back garden.
To give a place for their families to mourn.
Maybe, yeah.
In privacy, right? But you do not group... You wouldn't bury... Right? John Wayne Gacy.
No.
Next to the 50, 40 something boys that he killed.
Yeah.
Right? And say, oh, 57 lives lost. No. 56 lives lost and a dead killer.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Okay?
So completely on his side, completely. And as well as him being father of one of the victims.
Somebody, give this man a fucking medal, please.
Completely understand. So the classes, after the event happened, obviously classes did not resume because for a few weeks after it was, a crime scene needed to be investigated. So classes did not resume there.
Not to mention the blood and the bullet holes and the burn.
So they were held at a nearby Chatfield Senior High for the remaining 3 weeks of the year. So they were also very close to graduating. The shooters, God. And just decided, nah.
How many of those kids were 18 and about to graduate?
There was quite a few that
How many of those kids had their fucking robes at home, bro?
Yeah.
Do you remember how early you have to book your robes? Right?
Yeah, I know.
And had, dinner reservations and parties planned out and trips and stuff.
Yeah.
Bro, this was 3 weeks. They probably had countdowns going down on their kitchen right there. Bro, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I've gotten the little scrolls, and it's just a really sad case overall. So they didn't. So, like I said, the shooting happened in April.
Yeah.
Classes didn't return to the school until August of that same year. They returned to the school, and the same principal, Frank DeAngelis, led a rally of students into the school wearing "We Are Columbine" t-shirts. Just kind of take back the school, if that makes sense. 6 months, there were still casualties even after the event, because obviously it would have been absolutely traumatizing.
Yeah.
6 months after the shootings, Anne-Marie Holthalter's mother, who was one of the students, her mother killed herself from the grief. Several former students and teachers who were there and experienced it had PTSD and still suffer with it. Like I said, some of them who were injured are still paralysed.
Yeah.
I actually saw one, I can't remember what documentary it was, but it was and don't quote me on this, it could have been the guy, if it wasn't the guy that was laid under his friends
Mm.
who died on top of him,
Mm-hmm.
then it was someone else, but he got shot, and he did the beginning of the interview in the documentary in a wheelchair,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of the documentary, he'd learnt how to walk again. So also, shout out whatever that guy was.
Honestly. Fucking
So,
resilience.
fuck yeah. And he'd managed to learn how to walk before they had like a reunion thing.
Nice.
So yeah, so that was nice. Greg Barnes, who was a 17-year-old student who had witnessed one of his friends dead, Sanders, died by suicide in May 2000, having not been able to get over it.
Fucking hell.
A survivor, Austin Eubanks, who was injured during the shooting, became heavily medicated, developing an opioid addiction, managed to overcome it and then became like an advocate.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, not long after that, did later die of an accidental overdose. As a result.
Oh, shit.
So, like, really, the number just keeps increasing as the years go by. The after effects are still definitely felt now. The definite motive, like I said, is argued and unknown to most people anyway. Like I said, I don't know what they say in the tapes.
Yeah.
Some of the tapes that haven't been released to the public, bits and pieces have been released as scripts, or some scripts has been released. I haven't read them personally though.
Okay.
Some motives, people try and say it's like bullying. Bullying was a big one. They tried to say that both shooters had been getting bullied and stuff.
Okay, that doesn't excuse killing
It doesn't.
that many people.
And like I said, people get bullied all the time.
Lots of kids get bullied, right?
Don't go on to do things like
99.9% of them never pick up a gun in their life.
But also, like I said, loads of other kids get bullied. There was also no definite things to say that they were getting bullied.
No evidence, no proof that there was a bully.
They tried to blame video games being violent because they played like Doom and stuff. But again, means nothing.
Millions of people.
Marilyn Manson also became it because they liked his music. So do I. I mean, it's a horrible person, Marilyn Manson, but we're not going to get into that right now.
We're not going to talk about that. Although it would be interesting to talk about in another episode.
Yeah, I could tell you some things about him. But I haven't gone on a school shooting, and I like some of his music. I'm just saying, right? By that profile, you should have 15 bodies on you. Violent media does not create violent people.
But you, violent media, music, bullying,
trauma,
yeah, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
You tick every single mark for being a school shooter.
Oh God!
And yet, you are too scared to kill a fly.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I do feel quite bad when I kill a fly.
Right? Okay. So respectfully, irrelevant.
Exactly. Like these things.
Irrelevant.
Sometimes you might be like, bullying's this, but then you can counter it and just be like, that's not really a good reason.
Some people.
Terrorism.
This is
another
important.
One.
Many people who have committed school shootings are traumatized. That does not mean that traumatized people make school shooters.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It is not a direct correlation. It is a causational thing.
Yeah.
Please. Enough.
But like I said, terrorism was another one, because, we said earlier about how he was saying he was, hating society and stuff. So no, we don't know which one it is. Only a few people know if there was one. Even knew one.
We don't even know if there was one. I mean, he might have just idolised shooting schools.
Even if they did say it during the basement tapes.
We'll never know.
Was that actually the reason?
Guess we'll never know.
Literally.
Because people say shit all the time.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, for sure. Eric Harris was, the late FBI definitely was right, he definitely was a psychopath. Fits all the bills. Completely agree. Dylan Klebold, it was the FBI said that he definitely had depression, which again completely agree. What it's most commonly known as when you look at these two shooters is that Eric wanted to kill others.
Yeah.
Dylan wanted to kill himself. Right? So together, the thing is, Dylan didn't care if someone else was hurt in him ending up dying.
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, he'd still get
To die. Death. Yeah.
Whereas Eric didn't care about himself dying as long as he got to take other people out with him.
Yeah.
So together, it was a terrible but also perfect combination.
I mean, there is a noticeable, like, discrepancy for the amount of kills.
Yeah.
But I would definitely,
for sure.
I would definitely say that both of them are as bad as each other because
Eric did kill a lot more.
Eric killed a lot more.
And injured
That's
a lot
true,
more.
but
they're both willing.
Dylan was still a willing part.
Yeah, as far as
he was still a willing part of this.
So Eric was obviously depicted as the mastermind, having a insane superiority complex and hoping to demonstrate his superiority to the world. Whereas Dylan was more of a follower who primarily participated in the massacre as a means to simply end his life. But, you know, if you're going to end your life, maybe just end your life, not everyone else's.
To be fair, he did end a lot less lives than Eric did.
Yeah.
But, I mean, weak argument there.
Some people have argued that Dylan could have been the first in his journal to mention killing others. But I would not be surprised if Eric has, like, thought about it first.
You know what? But you have to remember, like, Eric is a manipulator.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? So there is a very, very, very good chance that Eric planted the seeds in Dylan.
Yeah, they've been friends for a while.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're talking to a friend and you see a TV show about, like, somebody shooting up a hospital or something, and they're like, oh my god, that's horrific, and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's awful, mate, but like...
They actually might not think that.
Do you, like, oh, but don't you think that, like, such and such, and they're like, oh yeah, actually. You can quite easily plant thoughts in people's heads.
Yeah, true. Right?
And just because it might have been Dylan who mentioned it first doesn't mean it was Dylan's idea.
True. Eric was also noted to have some kind of depression. He was on antidepressants and did have them in his system.
Clearly didn't help.
But that was really all both of them had in the system. I don't know if Dylan had out in his system. I don't think so. But Eric really only had antidepressants in his system.
Okay.
And was also going to regular counselling. Or at least seeing a psychiatrist regularly.
Clearly also didn't help.
Yeah. Following the Columbine shooting, schools across the United States tried to get new security measures, such as see-through backpacks, metal detectors, school uniforms, and security guards in schools. Again, maybe just get rid of your fucking guns.
You're trying to police the wrong thing here.
Some schools implemented a number of school doors, like increasing the amount of school doors so there's multiple exits for people. Several schools throughout the country resorted to requiring students to wear computer-generated IDs as they come and went. Some schools also adopted a zero-tolerance approach to possession of weapons and threatening behaviour by students, and anti-bullying policies.
Look, but the thing is...
These are all good and great, but, like, also, there's a bigger issue here.
Right.
Really is.
Right.
Really is.
Okay. It's the societal version of...
You're doing little things here.
Of giving somebody a wig when they've lost their hair to cancer, right? It's going to make things look pretty, but it's not going to fix the cancer.
Yeah.
Do we see the issue here?
The police departments reassessed their tactics and...
as they should, because what the fuck?
Yeah, they now train for Columbine-like situations after how they handled the situation, including their slow response and the progress of the SWAT teams during the shooting. For example, I don't think they got into the library until about 3 p.m. The shooting had stopped at, like,
they killed
8 minutes past 12.
Yeah, they killed themselves, like, 10 past
12.
So
those people that were gravely injured or faking their deaths laid with those dead bodies of the shooters.
Cooling dead bodies.
For
rapidly
hours.
Cooling.
That guy who hid under his friends' bodies, feeling their last breaths, kept laying under his friends' bodies for hours.
2 hours and 50 minutes.
Absolutely mental. So yeah, and obviously that includes them not responding fast enough to that sign in the window with the teacher as well. Because he could have been saved.
If they could have got in the school.
But that's the thing. They had plenty of time. But they purposely did not go to that room thinking that, you know, it was a trap. Even after they knew the shooters were dead. So I don't know if they thought they might place bombs in there or something. But
the thing is, right, if that's the case, you take every precautionary measure and then you go in anyway.
Yeah.
Right? You're literally the police.
Yeah.
It's your job.
Yeah. Many lawsuits were filed by victims' families and survivors. The families of the shooters also had to pay a lot in lawsuits, which is complicated.
You see, I don't like that.
No, it wasn't their family's fault, but I understand why you're taking money from them, but at the same time...
Look, I think the thing is, personally speaking, right, if the perpetrator of the shootout, of the massacre, is still alive and in custody, absolutely do I think he's responsible for paying back,
for sure.
right?
Yeah,
but do not hold the family and the parents who are just as appalled.
On those basement tapes, they'd said about how they'd been deceiving their families and stuff. So, yeah. Though, a bit of a nice thing, the library where most of the massacre took place, destroyed.
Nice.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that was the only way to go about that.
Yeah.
And was replaced, and an atrium was built in its stead.
Nice.
Yeah. A permanent memorial that says, to honour and remember the victims of the April 20th, 1999 shootings at Columbine High School, began planning in June 1999 and was dedicated and built in 2007 in Clement Park, which is still there today.
As it should be.
In 2000, the federal and state legislation introduced that they would require safety locks on firearms, as well as ban the importation of high-capacity ammunition magazines. However, a bit of a dark side. Fandoms. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this.
Every fucking time.
Yeah, particularly when it comes to places like Tumblr. Quite notorious.
This is why I don't go on Tumblr, right? Because it tumbles you down a dark spot.
I love Tumblr.
No.
But I do not endorse this kind of shit because you get them for, like, killers that people think are attractive. They're like, oh, they're too pretty to be in jail. Oh, Ted Bundy didn't do anything too wrong. I'd send him fucking letters. Baby'd murder you so fast. Shut the fuck up.
Do you know what, though? You just reminded me of a co-worker I have that asked me to name one thing that was actually illegal and not just some trumped up shit that Donald Trump had done.
Oh, God.
Because this guy, right, sucks Donald Trump's dick.
Really hope not.
Oh, this man would happily bend the knee to this man, and it traumatized me because orange pubes. Yeah. Just think about that. And I responded by saying, did he want the list alphabetically or chronologically? Because I could send him a couple of videos to educate himself.
Well, that's the thing, it's just like, but when it comes to, like, fandoms for these things, there is, when you really look for it.
Never looking.
I'd agree, don't. Because it's not just for this. This one's a pretty big fandom. But you, like I said, for killers that people think are pretty, they're like, oh, we can change him. They'll make fucking fan art.
Wasn't there like
They'll make little edits.
Wasn't there like a Richard Ramirez one as well?
Oh, yeah. He had loads of people trying to be his girlfriend. While he was in jail.
Yeah, because everybody was like...
For literally raping and murdering women as well, but alright.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just absolutely insane. It's like, what is going through these people's heads? So, there's a massive fandom dedicated to the shooters.
I think we have some pictures coming up.
Of the killers and the victims, but not...
Of the fandom, thank God.
So that's easily found.
No, I'm not going anywhere near that.
So they refer to themselves as Columbiners.
It's the high school, not the victims.
They have created things like fan art, fan fiction. They will cosplay as the shooters.
Did you just say fan fiction?
Yes. Of romancing the killers. You know, being with them in the shooting, trying to convince them not to do the shooting. Do you see the level of insanity? This is why I said earlier about those t-shirts with natural selection getting sold out super fast. From this shit, people dressing up like them.
Look, I'm not usually silent in this podcast, but I'm genuinely speechless.
There have also been, like I said, numerous documentaries, numerous books, numerous video games about the shooting. For example, there's a very
Please
controversial, banned in a lot of places, video game called Super Columbine Massacre RPG, where you play as the shooters and you go around shooting the students, reenacting the crime, even going to the library. So that's a real game. Very controversial and very banned.
I hate the world that we live in.
Yeah,
I hate the world we live
in. There have been about 74 copycat cases.
Oh.
Several mentioning outright inspiration from the case. And to sort of finish off, Dylan Klebold's mother, remember, his family's very religious.
Yes.
Years after it all happened and stuff.
Oh god, here we go.
Actually does TED Talks. And states outright, she's like, listen, I am the mother of one of the Columbine School shooters. And she does things like anti-bullying, trying to like be more aware about these kind of things. Which, you know what, I commend her for that.
Commend her, yeah.
So these are not the best pictures of the shooters, but these are from one of the tapes. So this was right before
That is absolutely Eric.
No, it isn't.
Is it not?
That's Dylan. That's Eric.
Bro, Dylan looks like a fucking crazy person.
But that I believe those were stills from the one that they did, the tape they did.
I need you to scroll because his face is freaking me out.
We can't. There is no more scrolling. But
yeah,
those
a cloth
are
over the top.
some
Thank you.
of the victims.
Right, okay. Thank you.
That was the disabled guy as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
They're all so young.
And that was the teacher. Good old Dave.
And that was the black guy.
Yeah.
Damn.
Where's Rachel? Rachel, the first one. I don't know if these are all of them.
Just there, Rachel.
Yeah. But yeah, her brother's obviously still alive and still talks about her.
Right, you can lock your screen now. Because I don't want to see Dylan's. You know what, Eric's face doesn't bother me. I'm not gonna lie to you. Dylan freaks me out.
Right, let me show you a better picture, because those were a bit...
It's just the expressions they had on their faces. It was... It just looked like complete psychopathy.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think you have to be to a degree to do what they did.
But like, that was fucking scary.
Eric Dylan.
I still don't like Dylan's face, but okay, he looks a little bit more normal in that picture.
This is from the Hitman's Hire, so that's what they would have looked like going into the school on the day of the shooting.
I don't want to see any more pictures.
Oh, wait, if you look there, that is some footage from the actual... That's when they're in the cafeteria.
Okay, thank you.
But, yeah, it's, yeah.
Do you remember when we were sitting here recording our last session, and I said, "Ooh, we haven't done Columbine yet"? Slap me if I ever say anything like that again.
Well, at least now we have, and now it's done. I told you, like, don't get me wrong, I was looking forward to doing Columbine, because it's, like,
It is one of the most notorious
yes, it's
cases out there.
Like, I mean, me and my mum are very interested in it. But, yeah, it is also a very rough one. There was several moments during then that I did choke up a little bit.
Same. Same. And I could see you getting choked up. And I was like, God damn.
Particularly the guy that felt his friend's last breath. Yeah, that's rough.
I think for me, it would be
the
disabled student.
Yeah, no chance.
And probably the kids in the science class.
Trying to save the teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're all varying levels of helplessness. Like, you've got the kid who can't move, being crushed by his dead friends.
Yeah.
You've got...
No, but he survived under his dead friends.
Yes, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Talk about helpless. Like, if I move, I'm dead. If I don't move, I'm literally being covered by the cooling blood of my dead friends.
Yeah.
Then you've got the disabled kid...
Who had no chance.
Who very calmly, probably, sat there knowing damn well that he was about to die and there was nothing he could do about it. And then there were the kids who sat there knowing damn well the police weren't moving, they couldn't leave, and there was only so much they could do to help their teacher.
But also in the science classroom, they wouldn't have known that the shooters were dead.
No, so they went sat
had
there
to sit
for
there.
3 hours in fear, looking at the rapidly cooling body of their dead teacher who had tried to save their lives.
Yeah.
Knowing,
and had saved some.
Yeah, but knowing that they were alive purely because he was dead. Right? That's some shit right there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that... I won't be surprised if there's been more fatalities since, in terms of long-term effects. But I definitely, as dark as it is, I would recommend watching some documentaries because they are really good.
But, I mean, kudos for the kids who went back into that school.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because
yeah,
I can't tell you in the same situation I'd ever go back.
I don't know if I would. I don't think I would.
If I'm that close to the end of the year, I'm doing my 3 weeks of that other school and I'm fucking off out of Columbine.
Yeah.
Right? I'm gone. Adios, motherfuckers. I'm moving to fucking Virginia. Right? Bye-bye. And I'm never going back.
Yeah.
I would bail, and seek much therapy.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if that...
hell do you recover from that?
I know, I feel so bad for, like, the parents of the kids as well, especially, like, with waiting for the bus that didn't show up. Oh, horrible. Horrible. Can't imagine how that would have felt.
But can you imagine, right, kids were coming out of that school from about 12 o'clock.
From before that, it started at, what? Like 19 minutes past 11 shooting started?
19 minutes past 11, those kids were coming out of that school.
Yeah.
Right? And you're telling me that police didn't actually get to the library?
Until about 3 p.m.
So that is at least 3 hours, if not more, that those parents were waiting to be told whether or not their kids were dead or not.
There was... Don't forget the fucking guy that was shot in the jaw, who survived.
Yeah.
Waiting at the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Like, but there was... I can't remember who it was, I'm so sorry, but there was someone who was injured, and it could have been the jaw guy, but there was someone that was injured around the cafeteria, and, because I remember a documentary going into it, and he had been really fucking injured bad below the waist.
Yeah.
And he could not, he couldn't get up.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was paranoid. I don't know if it was the guy that ended up being able to walk at the end.
Yeah.
But he, first of all, laid, faking in that he was dead, in the cafeteria for hours, also terrified that he didn't know if the bombs behind him were about to go off and he couldn't move.
That's psychological terror, that is.
And he had actually managed to use his hands to kind of, like, drag himself out of the cafeteria and sort of outside onto, like, one of, like, the
walkways.
Yeah, like, near the fields.
Yeah.
And that's when ambulance people managed to see him, like,
crawling out,
trying to, like, drag himself. Yeah, managed to get to him. And they were, like, getting shot at by the shooters as they was trying to get him in the ambulance and stuff. And, yeah, absolute mental case.
Fucking wild, those.
But, yeah, no, like I said, there's been many more since then.
Which baffles me, because, like... Yeah.
But I don't know, there's something different about Columbine.
Sorry,
I can't place what it is.
I don't want to say, like, do y'all enjoy this? Because obviously you fucking don't.
I think it's something I need to talking about, though.
But why the fuck are people not more invested in fucking dealing with this?
Why the fuck are people praising the killers?
Fucking psychopaths, that's why.
That's what I want to know. But, right, we will let you go, because obviously this has been, like, one of our longest episodes. Understandably so.
Honestly, I don't even know if I have it in me emotionally to keep talking about it.
But yeah, I would definitely say for those who can stomach a bit more, maybe on a different day, I'd definitely go watch a few documentaries, because like I said, they're really good, and there's a lot of stuff said from, like, victims who were there and
Right.
survived.
For sure, it's
and,
an educational
you
moment.
know, the families and stuff, and it provides a nice, well, not a nice, but it provides a different perspective on it, and I think it's an important one that, you know, you need to know.
You've heard the facts, now you need to hear the opinions.
Yeah.
Facts and opinions, for an equal and rounded point of view. Facts and opinions.
Yeah, so, either way, this has been, unfortunately, the Columbine School shooting. Maybe go watch a happy video.
Honestly, I'm about to
Play
play
a cozy game.
the cutest little cozy games, try and draw myself out of the depression pit that Beth has just sent me to.
I'm gonna finish my katsu curry.
I'm gonna eat my fudge.
Yeah,
I got
finally.
judged for. What? I can't open it. It's a rustly packet.
True. We're recording next episode very soon, which will be very different from our usual.
It's a nice mystery for me.
It is, and will also be a bit shorter than the past few that we've done.
Far less depressing, hopefully.
Yes.
Excellent.
I mean, a bit more of a mystery, an uncertain end, but as far as we're aware, no gratuitous violence. So that's nice.
No psychopaths. No dead children.
Well,
No suicidal parents.
yes.
I personally am looking forward to it.
Yeah. So that's why you got to get the worst one out the way with first. So we've been BB True Crime.
That is Beth.
Yep.
And I am Becky.
Please join us next time if you'd like to. And thank you for joining us this time.
If you'd like to. Honey, they're this many episodes in, of course they're joining us.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much, guys.
Been a pleasure. See ya.
Bye.